July 17th, 2023, and we are here for a governing body meeting. I will ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Mayor Dennis present and presiding. Councilmember Osman. Here. Councilmember Larson.
Here.
Councilmember Harrison. Here. Councilmember Asseltine.
Here.
Councilmember Kane.
Here.
Councilmember Sipple.
Here.
Councilmember Rawlings.
Here.
Councilmember Phila is absent.
All right, I'm expecting her.
Okay.
Are we not?
Oh, I'm not, I don't know.
Okay. All right, very good. Thank you so much. The next item is the Pledge of Allegiance. As you're able, please rise and we will face the flag.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The next item is the approval of the agenda. We do have an amended agenda in front of you all. We have had item 8G pulled by staff. And under City Administrator's report, we've had two additions. A, regarding storm update, and B, regarding an agreement. So with those modifications.
Second.
Motion
Second.
from Mr. Rawlings, second from Ms. Kane, to approve as amended. If there's no discussion, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. It's approved unanimously. Thank you. Moving to citizen comments, we have two citizens that signed in on non-agenda items. So I'll recognize you now and ask if you'll come forward. Please state your name and address for the record. And if you can keep your comments to 5 minutes, that would be appreciated. Jolynn Hobbs.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Jolynn Hobbs. I reside at 8309 Lee Boulevard. And for those of you that don't know me, I am honored to serve as the president of the Leawood Homes Association, serving 1,500 families. And it is a position that I take very seriously, making sure that we serve our residents with integrity, deep care, and personal commitment. And my fellow board members share and serve with the same resident commitment, and that service is key during impacting weather events. As you can imagine, the HOA board had a very busy weekend. Our area suffered significant tree damage during Friday night's storm, and the HOA has received numerous reports of street tree damage within our neighborhood. And on Saturday morning, I authorized our contracted vendor Arbor Masters to deploy emergency teams to assist our residents. So I'd just like to stop by, and I'd like to take a moment to thank our vendor Arbor Masters publicly. When I call in the cavalry, they come quickly and ready to help. And I'd also like to acknowledge and thank the Leawood Fire Department, the Leawood Police Department, and Leawood Public Works for assisting and taking immediate care of our residents over the weekend. I would also like to thank the mayor, the city administrator, the city council, and all the city departments for considering allocating funds and services to assist North Leawood residents in our time of need. With the city's assistance, a dedicated HOA board partnering with our steadfast residents, we will work together to clean up and restore our neighborhood. The Leawood HOA will continue our commitment to investing and maintaining our tree canopy in North Leawood. And I thank you for your time and the opportunity to visit with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Hobbs, for your service, and we truly appreciate what you've been going through. And I know because I drove around and saw also how many people were out working. So thank you for all your hard work and for coming this evening. Bob Brattel.
everybody. Charles Bob Britell, 9221 Wenonga Road, lovely Leawood, Kansas. Along with my Homeowners Association president, I'd like to thank the linemen and women for getting our power back up and running. And I know it's taking longer than some people might appreciate, but I've seen crews from Michigan, Indiana, Illinois, Oklahoma, and Texas. So it takes a while to call out the cavalry like that and get them all to come in. So I think they should be thanked. I know some of those dudes are sleeping in their trucks and whatnot. So thank you on behalf of my mom, who lives over in Waldo as well. So I've been gone for a couple weeks. I apologize. I did come back and note that, when looking at the goals of the city, because I'm a candidate for city council in Ward 1, just kind of poking around today, I noticed that communications was one of the goals of of the council this session. I want to applaud you because in the 25 years of Mayor Dunn's tenure, it doesn't seem like that has been a strong suit for the city. But I would also say that communications isn't engagement. And so I know you guys hired a communications manager. Hopefully she'll get the messaging right on that, unless engagement isn't really what you want. And I suspect it isn't. My platform is engagement, accountability, and transparency, just to be clear. It's interesting to me, I don't know if you guys have had a chance to see this, but Vote Joco published candidate surveys. And in, in Leawood, really without any exception, all of them indicated that they're running because the communication with, to, and from the city has been awful. So I guess we're all similarly motivated in that regard, except Lisa, I guess, didn't bother to fill out a survey that I can see. So communication's taking one strike there. I'm really here to discuss your unconstitutional law that you passed as part of your agenda item to limit citizen comment. The language that you inserted is facially unconstitutional, presumptively so, even if it's considered a time, place, and manner restriction, which I'm sure some of your lawyers could tell you about, or maybe not, because this is pretty awful. It says, comments should be limited to issues and items germane to the business of the governing body. I don't really know what that means. And then it says you won't discuss or debate these items, but this is your commitment to communications, right? You're committed to communications so much that you will cut people off from things that you don't want to talk about. And you won't discuss or debate them like you used to. So I think that's strike three. As you well know, this is only adopted after I used citizen comment to raise the profile of the mayor's politics, which are distinctly anti-woman and anti-trans, among other things, which I think goes to the fitness to serve and motivation for lawmaking as well as character. But this law, and it has the effect of law because if I violate it, you'll have me hauled out of here by like the police, right? So it's meant to stop people from speaking the truth to power, right? It is meant to stop people from confronting their elected officials. It's funny, kind of like the silence equals complicity thing. And it's meant to do that. It's meant to do that, right? You mean to chill speech, but you're committed to communication. So the good news is the U.S. has the First Amendment to the Constitution. Anybody ever read the Constitution? Hands, okay. Familiar with the first 10 amendments called the Bill of Rights? So the Constitution wasn't able to be adopted until it was agreed that the first 10 amendments would be adopted. And first among those is freedom of speech. The most important right we have as citizens, and we have that as citizens, not the government, right? So for a law like this, I don't have to prove anything. You have to prove that it is narrowly tailored and serves a compelling government interest. I'd love to know what that is. This is meant to have people stop speaking about things you don't want. And we can go back and roll the tape and listen to Deborah Fila lose her mind saying enough, enough, enough when I was chatting, but anyway. So how did this happen? Bad lawyers giving worse advice. Something the mayor has a particular attraction to, whether it's her contributions to Rudy Giuliani, Phil Klein, or Chris Kobach. So in the spirit of communication, I'd ask you to withdraw this deeply offensive and unconstitutional restriction immediately. Since I know you won't, I won't ask you to act on it, and you can't anyway, because you've restricted yourselves from talking, which is fantastic. Nothing says communications like not talking to the people who come to talk to you. Anyway, that's Leawood's commitment to communication in a nutshell. And it's to this end that I'm running, to end the lawlessness of Leawood's governments, to put some constraints in place so that you can't just do whatever you want, whenever you want, without notice, and return us to a constitutional limited government. Bertel for Leawood.
That concludes our citizen comments on non-agenda items, so we'll go on now with the rest of our agenda. I will call on the last individual who signed in to speak, actually, when that agenda item comes up, the Market Square topic. We have no proclamations, we have no presentations or recognitions. We go now to special business 7A, review of the 2022 Annual Comprehensive Financial Report. Mr. Cobby, did you want to make an introduction?
I'd be happy to do that. Kevin Smith, who is a partner with RSM US, they were our selected auditors for this year, and Kevin will briefly go over some slides that he has, and we'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Wonderful, thank you. Mr. Smith, good evening.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. Here to present the results, as Don mentioned, from the 2022 audit. Just have a brief presentation, but also happy to answer any questions you all might have at the end as well. So overall, the audit is required by the state and federal government to be performed each year by an external auditor. The main purpose is to express an opinion on the financial statements. The financial statements are a responsibility of management, and our job is to come in and to give that opinion over the financial statements. We do look at internal controls as they relate to financial reporting, even though we do not perform an internal control audit. So we don't give you an opinion on internal controls, but we do report back to you certain things that we are made aware of as a part of our audit. One thing that we were not engaged to perform this year is a single audit, which is an audit over the federal grant programs, because you weren't required to. So you have to have over $750,000 of federal expenditures to be required to have that audit. And one thing to point out here, you did receive ARPA funding during the year, but it's based on when you spend that money. So at the end of the year, a lot of that money had not been spent, so that single audit requirement will trigger for future years. I mentioned our responsibility is to give you an opinion on the financial statements, so we did issue an unmodified or a clean opinion over the financial statements, so that is the highest level of assurance that you can receive as a part of an external audit. There was one new accounting standard that was effective for the city this year with respect to leases. So not a huge impact on the financial statements, but you will see about $192,000 lease liability go on the books that had not been previously recorded. Basically taking all leases, and instead of making certain leases operating versus capital, everything was going on your balance sheet as either an asset or liability. We do look at any estimates that are involved in making the financial reporting and concluded that all those estimates were reasonable. We did not have to propose any audit adjustments as a part of our audit process, so the books and records that we were given to audit did not require adjustment. We reported to you one uncorrected misstatement, which was deemed to be immaterial. Basically, just there had never been an allowance calculated on property tax receivables because you do have a high collection rate, but there is a dollar amount that could be considered as uncollectible. And no disagreements to report to you or difficulties performing the audit. We've received full cooperation from everyone that we worked with at the city, had access to all the records we needed to perform the audit. And then one other thing you'll see in the materials provided to you is that report on internal controls. As I mentioned, it's not an opinion on internal controls, but we do report back to you significant deficiencies and material weaknesses. So there is one item reported as a significant deficiency that you'll see in that letter, and further details of that are provided in writing to you all. But there were no material weaknesses identified as a part of our audit and no instances of noncompliance. So overall, when you think about the financial statements that were just issued, that is just looking at the financials at a point in time of the city. And really, if you think about the best measure of the health of the city is looking at those bond ratings, and the city does maintain to have that AAA bond rating. And, you know, the rating agencies do use these audited financial statements to make some of those decisions. And you do have a healthy fund balance at the end of fiscal year 22 in your general fund, about 50% of your expenditures. And one thing to note here as well, this report does get submitted to the GFOA for review in their Certificate of Achievement in financial reporting. The city has received that award for 26 consecutive years. Expect you to receive that for 27 after this report gets submitted. And that concludes the formal presentation, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Well, thank you, Mr. Smith. I'm also expecting a 27th year of GFOA recognition, so let's hope so. And I'm delighted with your unmodified opinion and your report of full cooperation with our staff, so thank you for that. Other questions, Mr. Sipple?
Mr. Smith, this is I hope not a hard question, but roughly how many hours were spent on this audit of Leawood's financials?
You know, I haven't done the final bill, so I don't have that exact number.
Well, I don't want to
But
upset
I know that we were budgeting around 600 or 700 hours. So it is a lot of work and time for all of your staff. And this was the first year that we were able to perform the audit and didn't have any significant difficulties, which is commendable. Loretta and Don and their team did a great job working with our folks to make that audit. So this first year, the hours tend to be a little higher than maybe they would be going forward, but I can get that number for you. I just don't have that exact number.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Just from walking around while the folks were here, it seemed not that different than our former auditor time-wise, but maybe it was more. I don't know. Other questions for Mr. Smith? And Mr. Smith, I believe you're a Leawood resident as well,
That's correct.
so very glad that you had a good experience
Yes.
with
About
our
2 minutes from my house, so this is perfect. I don't have to fly anywhere.
wonderful,
Right.
wonderful.
All right, thank you.
I believe the next item will be resolution accepting it. So we appreciate you being here this evening. Thank you. 7B is a resolution accepting the 2022 Annual Comprehensive Financial Report for the City of Leawood, Kansas.
Move to approve?
Second.
Motion from Ms. Phyllis, second from Mr. Sipple. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. It's approved unanimously. Thank you. And 7C is an ordinance levying special assessments on certain property to pay the costs of improvements in the City of Leawood, Kansas, as previously authorized by resolution number 6045 of the city, and providing for the collection of such special assessments. This is Regents Park Villas development. Mr. Cobby, do you have anything you want to say about this?
I wager to bet you all know more about this than I do. Patty asked me to step in just in case, and obviously I know quite a bit about the process, but not about the specific project. But it seems very similar to other projects I've been involved with.
Right, and this is a special benefit district, and I do believe there's a cap on the dollar amount too. So, any other questions from any of you? Ms. Phillip?
I was just going to note that is it a 15-year commitment, and I was going to ask that, but it's right there in the certification, so I thought that's important to note.
Okay. Would someone like to make a motion to?
Approval?
Oh, Lisa, did you, Ms. Harrison, did you have a question? Okay. Mr. Rawlings, motion
Second.
to approve. Mr. Azeltine, a second. Anything else? All right, roll call, please.
Councilmember Phila,
Aye.
Councilmember Rawlings. Councilmember Sipple.
Aye.
Councilmember Kane.
Aye.
Councilmember Osman.
Aye.
Councilmember Larson.
Aye.
Councilmember Harrison.
Aye.
Councilmember Azeltine.
Aye.
All right, it's approved unanimously. Thank you. We move now to consent agenda items 8A through Q. And I'm going to pull O for a comment. Is there anything else, Ms. Kane?
I and L, please.
I and L. Anything else anybody wants to pull? All right. If there's nothing else, I would take a motion to approve the remaining
Move to
portion.
approve?
Second.
Motion from Mr. Asseltine, second from Ms. Larson. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. It's approved unanimously. Thank you. All right. 8I is a resolution approving and authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement between the city and Conrad Fire Equipment pertaining to the purchase of fire apparatus in the amount of $2,088,822.42. Ms. Kane?
Yes, I read this with great interest, that we could order a $2 million Pierce Enforcer aerial truck and not have to make a payment until its delivery, which is not expected for 30 months. That's kind of an amazing thing to me. So is that normal, or is that changed, or this is just the way, okay?
Colin Fitzgerald, Fire Chief. So yes, it's not normal and it has changed. So typically we'd order a truck and it's usually an 8 to 9 month build time. So we'd order it in January of the budget year and receive it that same year. Since COVID, the time has gradually got longer and longer. And believe it or not, this was the most expeditious of our choices. So typically we would order a fully custom truck and have it in that 8 to 9 months. And they're telling us if we order a fully custom truck now, that's a 40-month build time. So we're budgeted in 26 to replace this truck. If we order it now, we get it in 26. If we wait until 26 to order, we don't get it till 29 or 30. And so all of our peers are seeing the same thing. Overland Park, Olathe, Lenexa, Shawnee have all ordered trucks this year that aren't budgeted for years. And we had to actually, Patty spent a lot of time with the attorney for Conrad Fire Equipment working out an agreement that would allow us under our purchasing policy to order it without payment being made, because typically we pay in advance, get the lease purchase financing in advance and make the payment and save a little bit on the, by paying cash up front. Obviously, that's not an option when you're 3 years out on your build time.
Well, then kudos to you, and then kudos to our legal staff for making that arrangement contractually. And the other thing I read is that if we did it, if you do it the way you're explaining, will actually save $100,000. If we had delayed, it would have been an extra $100,000.
So there's actually two delay costs. If August 1st was a scheduled 1.75% increase, which doesn't sound much, but on 2.1 million, that's like $37,000. And then there is an EPA mandated diesel engine change taking place in, I think it's 26 to 27, and the manufacturer's are already switching over now. And if you order your truck post the engines they have on hand, it raises it by the 100,000, and they said that'll happen within the next few months. So it was definitely trying to get it in ahead of that.
Well, thank you for the explanation. I have no further questions. There's one down there, or two.
Mr. Sipple and then Mr. Rawlings.
I had two questions, Chief. Where actually is the piece of equipment manufactured?
So Pierce's factory, I've never been there, but it's in, I believe, Wisconsin?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I remember that, yeah.
Almost 99% sure yet it's there. So, yeah.
The other question I had is, you had an extensive laundry list of attachments and features on this thing. What happens to the deal if you and your staff find the need to amend that? Add something, take something away? Is the deal still negotiable at that price? There might be an add-on or a reduction or whatever, but that's not going to screw up our delivery time.
No, and the interesting thing about that long laundry list, that was actually, they call it Build My Pier. So we're actually basically ordering a line truck. So those are the specs that basically come with the truck that they build all the time. Before we would custom order, and basically go down and pick every single thing. This, we're able to customize some like cabinet space for the storage of the equipment we carry and things like that, but the vast majority is kind of the way they build it, which saved us that 10 months build time, believe it or not. But when they get ready to actually start construction on it, because they don't actually start building it for like 2 years. I mean, the truck we ordered the engine in January of last year that we still don't have yet, we have a pre-build meeting in August, and we're supposed to get it in spring of '24. So you have that pre-build meeting, and at that time, they go over everything, and you have that, a chance at that point if you need to change something, amend something. And so, yeah,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Mr. Rawlings? I don't know if your mic's on.
There's no trade-in value, which I guess that's the way it works, I guess. But you mentioned that this will become an operational reserve unit?
No, so this one is replacing an operational reserve unit that's now 22 years old.
Right.
But the existing frontline truck, when we get this, will go into reserve status, and this one becomes frontline. So what we do is, we have a 20-year replacement plan. So you run it as a frontline truck for 10 years, and then a reserve truck for 10 years.
Okay, that answers my question.
So technically, it's replacing a 2002 model, but the 2016 model we have will go into reserve when we get it. But we'll keep it for a total of 20 years.
So we will have two.
Yeah,
Two.
we have two now. So
Yep.
if the frontline one goes out, we still need a truck to, to drive, so we keep that second one in reserve.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Villa?
So what happens to the one that's going to migrate out? How do you dispose of those, or do you sell them to another?
So typically, we reach out to, there are really two main aftermarket resellers, and that's what we've done the last few times. We've sold it to them, not for a lot of money. We did get asked by Conrad's if we'd be interested in, perhaps traded it in, so to speak, and usually you get credit for it because they can't do it now in advance because it's 30 months out and the value can totally change in that amount of time. But there is an option for us to work with them, or do we have in the past and reach out to the resellers and have them make, the last time we had two companies make us cash offers on our last two engines we sold, and compared to the price, it wasn't a lot, but it was, I guess, better than nothing. More than we get if we took it to like Purple Wave or something. I think we got 100,000 for the two old engines that we got rid of.
Thank you.
If there's nothing else for the chief, I would entertain a motion to approve, please.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion from Mr. Rawlings, second from Ms. Kane. There's no additional discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. It's approved unanimously. And as an aside, Chief, I heard you did an outstanding job in front of Leawood Rotary, you and your team.
Absolutely.
So just, sorry I couldn't be there to hear you, but I
Sure.
heard
Thank you.
rave reviews. So, thank
He
you.
gave more statistics than a government official on what.
8L is approve the purchase of a 2024 John Deere 85P-tier excavator from Murphy Tractor and Equipment Company in an amount not to exceed $146,624. Ms. Kane.
I see, Mr. Lay. I thought this was interesting reading, too. I always learn something when I get a packet. So we have backhoes, we've used them before, but to change to this mini excavator on a trailer has benefits.
It does have benefits. So on the backhoe, typically, those have to be driven to the site, so they're much slower to get there, but they're also a little more dangerous to control. The Mini X is a much smaller unit. It has, with the tracks, we'll be able to get on yards. It doesn't have as much weight per square foot, so we don't destroy, damage the yards as much with the Mini X, so.
So we have a backhoe and we'll continue to use it when we need it, but for some things we'll be switching over to this mini excavator.
No, the backhoe that this one's replacing, the Mini X will replace the backhoe. We purple waved the backhoe last year because we had issues with it.
So
we
no
parted
more
ways with it.
backhoe in Leawood.
Correct.
I thought that was just interesting reading. Thank you. That's all I had. Move to approve. If there's no,
Motion from Ms. Kane, second from Ms. Larson. Are there any other questions or discussion? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. It's approved unanimously. Thank you. And 8-0, I pulled the police department monthly report, and I pulled it to read into the record something on the third page, and I think I see the person in the room that I was going to read about, so maybe he can remain standing also. Our captain, Kurt Yoder, graduated as part of the 286th class of the FBI's National Academy on Thursday, June 8th. He received his diploma from FBI Director Christopher Wray, spent 10 weeks in Quantico, Virginia with police commanders from around the world. He received training in leadership, team development, and physical education. And I just wanted to congratulate you. Thank you for your service and for taking the time to go through this. I know several of our, Chief Finger, I think you've gone through this, and maybe some others in your department.
Captain Robbins.
Captain Robbins. Well, we're very proud. You make us very proud, and we wanted to say congratulations. Thank you. And I would entertain a motion
Move to
to
approve.
accept that report, please.
Somebody pull him.
Motion from Ms. Villa. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Sippel.
I do have one
Discussion?
comment, yes.
Sure.
Chief, you promised we would meet chemo.
Oh,
That's it? That's our introduction? But, I mean, how super cool that we have our police dog, and you can tell us what you wrote here. And, oh, I thought he was going to be here. Did you not say that? Did I dream that? Maybe in a happy dream?
Must have been a misunderstanding.
It was a
Sorry.
definite misunderstanding, because I was under the same assumption.
Yeah.
Well, I do recall a time in the past when we did have one of our police dogs come. And it wasn't the calmest meeting we've ever had. So maybe that's the reason it's just written up in the
he's on a
report.
schedule.
I believe it was 6 years ago.
Do you?
Yes.
You'll never forget.
And no, and it's chemo's 6th anniversary, correct?
Oh, I see.
Oh, was it right when he came?
Well, but how cool. So he's our 8th canine, and he was responsible for, in the last 2 months alone, he's logged 3 self-initiated drug arrests, a felony arrest, and a misdemeanor arrest. And the 2 have assisted on 2 other drug arrests, a second felony arrest, and 6 vehicle searches for drugs. So yay chemo, and yay Officer Hayes, and I would love to meet him, maybe at the open house or something like that, but that's probably not a no-no. You never touch those dogs, I do know that. So, I'm sorry, I thought we were gonna meet him
My
tonight.
apologies. And yes, he will be present at our open house this fall. And probably do need to see him because he is getting up in the years. And within the next year or so, we'll be planning on retiring chemo.
And will he go to somebody on the force, or do they usually not stay? I mean, I know he won't be working, but does he get adopted normally within our own group, or not
Our
normally?
canines have always been adopted by their handlers, and so they remain at home with their handlers.
Awesome,
Which is
awesome.
wonderful,
Yes, I love that.
wonderful.
Will we be getting a replacement? Because chemo's our
Absolutely.
only canine
Correct.
right now, correct?
He will be replaced.
Are they always males? Just curious. The
That's-
police dogs? Or is that a trick question?
That's a trick question, apparently, because I don't know the answer. I assume they're all males, have been, but
Say Leawood is an equal opportunity employer.
I'm sure they're not all males. I'm sure they're equal, 4 and 4.
They always have
All right.
Whatever works.
Yeah, thank you. That's all I had.
All right, we
Thank
have a
you.
motion and a second to accept the police department monthly report. If there are no further comments, all in favor, please say aye. Opposed, nay. It's approved unanimously. Thank you, Chief Finger, and thank you, Ms. Kane. Moving to 9, the mayor's report. I would like to, before I comment on 9A, I would like to offer my heartfelt condolences to all of our residents who lost power, trees, food, etc., over the weekend due to the historic storm on Friday afternoon. And my thanks to City Administrator Diane Stoddard, Public Works Director David Lay, Police Chief Dale Finger, Fire Chief Colin Fitzgerald, and Parks Director Chris Claxton for all of your excellent responses to the calls for help. Ms. Stoddard will share more during her City Administrator report. But our gratitude also to Evergy, who at one point in a report I received had 3,500 responders from our area and neighboring states trying to find resolutions. And hopefully by tomorrow, the report will say 100%. My latest report said 95% restored, so let's hope by tomorrow it'll be everyone, and there won't be another horrible storm in the very near future.
If I might just make one correction.
Yes.
It was beyond neighboring states that are helping us. They're
Oh,
West Virginia.
you're right.
Yeah,
Sure.
there's no limitation as to how far they would
Yes.
drive to help us.
You're right, Ms. Fella, thank you. Going now to 9A, which is the annual report on the American Revolution Tricentennial CD Fund. As you recall, the Leawood American Revolution Bicentennial Committee presented the city with a CD for $1,000 on July the 6th, 1976. I'm here to report to you that last year, we earned zero.
Zero.
Why, I don't know, but
Interesting.
zero interest, which brings the current balance, I imagine it's the same as it was last year, to $8,759.57. The new CD will yield an interest rate, however, of 0.025% and will mature on June 25th, 2024. So we hope for a much more robust report next year. I'd like to offer sincere appreciation to Director of Parks, Recreation, and Arts, Chris Claxton, and her team for a fabulous 4th of July celebration during this 75th anniversary year of the City of Leawood. There was great assistance from our police, fire, and public works departments as well, and thousands of attendees were on hand to enjoy. So my thanks to one and all. I participated in a Leawood Chamber ribbon cutting for First Business Bank, which is located on the first floor of KBP at College Boulevard and State Line Road. And they're headquartered in Madison, Wisconsin, and they reported that this will be their only site within the Kansas City metro area. There will not be another one. So we wish them much success. And I'd like to remind everyone that the Leawood Stage Company is performing Broadway musical Disney's Beauty and the Beast. You still have some time to see it. July 19th through the 22nd at 7:30 p.m. and the 23rd at 2 p.m. This is at Rockhurst High School in the Rose Theater, and it is free of charge to enter and enjoy. So I hope you'll all have the opportunity to see it. I've heard great things about it. Mr. Esseltine?
Mayor, I was debating whether or not to bring this up, but 0.025% on a FDIC insured CD is way, way low. I did one last week for 5%. So I know it's not a lot of money, and I know that's just kind of a novelty item, but still, you know, if we're going to be good fiduciaries, we should get the best rate.
I guess I could ask my city clerk if there's an opportunity to, since, didn't you put this on the agenda for me?
I did, and I'll check with our finance director.
Good answer, smart answer. Thank you. Well, we do hope we have something to report next year other than zero. So, yes, very good. Thank you. That concludes my mayor's report, and we go to council members' report. 10A, Councilmember Phila, Stormwater Committee recommendation on the consultant selection for the 2023 stream inspection study. Ms. Phila?
Thanks, Mayor. This is one of my loves is stormwater, was the question of how do we best manage the gray area of our stormwater, which is our creeks. We don't have a best practices. We don't really have a manual for homeowners as to how to best manage that. And that was one of the goals that we brought up, was to try and look into this. And I'm so pleased with what the staff has brought forward, is this consultant selection, which we reviewed at our last stormwater meeting. And we're asking to bypass the bidding process because of three things. First and foremost, there's very few folks that have any experience in this area, so we're not the only ones that are braving new ground. And they have worked with peers. The second reason, they've worked with folks in the Johnson County area like Mission Hills, so they have experience. And because of their partnership, that's allowing us to be creative and use that fiduciary responsibility to partner with Johnson County. Normally, you might think this would be a 50-50, but now maybe we ought to ask for 75-25 because it's really a watershed issue, because it's kind of like the last mile is when it gets to the creek of where the water is going to hit. And so for that reason, and then also the wastewater is interested in partnering with us because of the erosion aspect. You know, they have things sitting out there where the dirt used to surround it, and now they just have these metal, points of their system, pipes and stuff. So for that reason, we would like to ask the council to approve waiving the bidding process.
Second.
I thought that perhaps we were also approving this WRS.
Yes, I'm sorry. And
Okay,
to
so it's more than just waiving the bidding process
and to approve the contract thereof.
with WRS.
Thank you.
Okay,
I agree.
so that's included in your motion and
Yes.
second. All right, any other, Ms. Kane?
So we don't know how much Johnson County and wastewater is going to contribute? So
Not
are
till you
we,
apply.
we don't know yet?
No, we don't know. So this first step here is just to be able to work with the county and WRS with the scope, and then determine the total cost, and then figure out the percentage of who's going to pay what.
Because one would think whatever, if we were coming up with a BMO, or BMP, or whatever we're gonna call this, for our stream, it would seem to be that something they could use for other communities as well, certainly not just our streams.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why they're very interested in sharing the cost with us on this project, so they can utilize it in other areas.
Great, thank you.
You're going where not many have gone.
Well, A+ for Leawood, we've done that before, haven't we?
Yeah, we actually have an engineer on the committee that does this work, and he says it's a rare line within the engineering business. And he says he had absolutely no interest. And he just said that he actually led us to this, because it's just something there's not very many of these people that do this, right, David?
Yeah, there's only a couple in the metro, so as you're probably well aware of, we have several residents on our stormwater committee that are stormwater experts, and they were all very high on WRS.
It's a good recommendation from that committee.
So the one thing I did want to add is, on the motion, it's just to make a recommendation to use water resources. We'll come back with a contract once we work out the scope with the county, and then we'll also have the funding at that time.
Okay, very good. Water Resource Solutions is WRS, for the record. So that is, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. It's approved unanimously. Thank you, Ms. Villa. 10B is Councilmember Osman regarding Happy Bottoms.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to bring this up because I felt it was very important. Our family is very involved with the Happy Bottoms organization. They reached out to the City of Leawood to find out if there was an opportunity to partner with us in some way, shape, or fashion. When I spoke to the CEO and the director, what they indicated is they are looking at getting their message out in a different way. What they found, for those of you who might not be familiar with Happy Bottoms, it's a diaper bank organization to provide well-needed resources for baby and infants to parents who might not have the resources. One of the challenges over these years is not only getting the word out, but people are very hesitant to actually come to them. But once they found out that there is this thing called Happy Bottoms, they sign up for the program. So Kansas City, Missouri, fortunately, or unfortunately, beat us to the punch by a couple weeks. They are rolling out this service where they're creating these diaper packs. And all first responders in Leawood, we are the first ones in Johnson County to have this, so that when they see if they pull someone over, if they see someone that may be in need, have an infant, have a child that doesn't have the resource, they'll have a packet of diaper products and a business card on where to outreach to. And then they have that one-on-one interaction with the fireman, the police officer, the EMT, who really sells it, and that's what this program is. It's all free of charge. Happy Bottoms supplies the product. We just carry it around as part of the city. So we are rolling that out, and I want to thank the Leawood Police, Fire, and EMT for being part of this program. So thank you.
Well, thank you, and thank you. I offer my thanks as well, and thank you, Ms. Strasman, for bringing it forth, because I know it's a great organization. Mr. Sipple.
I would like to add to what Councilmember Osmond said. The Leawood Rotary Club is actively involved with Happy Bottoms. We go down and help them put these packets together that Andrew spoke about. We do that at least twice a year, sometimes 3 times a year, plus we give them a financial contribution. So our group is all in with regard to Happy Bottoms, and we'd be glad to assist in any way we can, speaking from the Leawood Rotary Club perspective. So.
Thank you, Chuck and Lisa.
And Jim.
And Jim.
And Peggy.
Peggy. Jim.
That warehouse got a lot of diapers in it.
Thank you very much. We'll go now to 11A, City Administrator. 11A is Storm Update. Ms. Stoddard?
Thank you, Mayor Dunn. Good evening, members of the City Council. I want to echo Mayor Dunn's thanks to the city crews who are busy since Friday afternoon working in response to the storm. Obviously, our emergency crews, public works crews, and then in addition, I would like to acknowledge Stephen Powell and his new employee, Liz Gordon, who did a great job in getting the public information out about the resources that you're going to be hearing about. So I requested that Chief Fitzgerald, the fire chief, provide you some information this evening about our storm response, as well as Public Works Director David Lay. So both of them will be talking about a little bit more about the numbers for you and what the city's response has been and will be. So Chief Fitzgerald.
Thank you.
Hello again. Colin Fitzgerald, Fire Chief. So do you have the packet in front of you? Okay.
We do.
So we just put together a summary report, so not necessarily to read through it word by word, but you can see that we actually wrapped up kind of a street-by-street damage assessment, looking just for homes that were visibly damaged that we could tell. And there was actually only 9, believe it or not, with all the vegetation that came down, all the trees. And if you were out, I saw several of you out Saturday cruising around. It's pretty remarkable, actually, that it was just only 9 homes and that they're all habitable. There were some holes punched through roofs, completely through. They're able to tarp them and, still get into the structures. None of them were structurally unsound that we could tell. Nothing we had reported. No injuries as a result of the storm. We didn't have any storm-related fires in Leawood. Usually we have at least, something, trees or something. We did run 3 fires, but they were all north with our neighbors, helping them out. We were really busy running calls, but both police and fire, as you could see on the data I gave you. But all in all, for what happened, considering Fox 4 said Leawood clocked the highest winds in the area, pretty lucky. So I guess if you have any questions, I know David's going to talk to you a little bit about debris management and the plans coming up for that. I would say, like, for the calls, the one thing we really had that was significant in Leawood, besides running the fires, was we did have one CO call where their detector alerted them, thank goodness. They had a generator going, and our crews went in, and it was dangerous enough levels. We made them evacuate, shut down their generator, and ventilated the structure for them. So if they wouldn't have had a CO monitor of their own, it could have been a totally different situation. So it went from, hey, our alarms are going off, to, I've run them in the past where everybody's unresponsive or worse. So that was probably the one super high point that I saw for our folks was, again, instead of just ventilating, it could have been a lot worse, but we'll talk about it.
So David Lay, Public Works Director. So this week, Public Works is operating the drop site at the old Parks Maintenance Facility. So we opened that up yesterday on Sunday. We're running it daily, 9 to 5, and that'll be open Sunday to Sunday. And so it takes a crew of 3 to help move and manage that. So we've had, I think it was about 163 residents, or 163 different drops at the site, and ended up being 16 dump trucks full of debris that we've already hauled off. So that does help a little bit, and the resident gives them an opportunity to get rid of the debris quicker. This week we did start sweeping up north with both sweepers, so we are anticipating being able to complete 2 sweeps on those streets within 3 weeks to try to get all that smaller debris picked up, because there's quite a bit on the roadway. And then another thing this week, since we're going to start the curbside pickup, we are requesting through social media that residents who won't be able to get their debris out to the curb by Monday to contact Public Works, and we're taking their address down. So we're going to map that out. And then at the end of this week, assuming we're going to do that curb pickup next week, we will start strategizing on where we're going to start within the city. So we know we're going to do north of 435, but if we have a lot of people in a certain area that are struggling to get the debris out to the curb, we will hold off and start in other areas.
Wow, it sounds very organized and efficient, and thank you so much for the excellent service you're providing. Really terrific.
I will say too, I checked before I came in, and we're down to 174 residents without power as of 7:30. So number came down in just the last 2 hours.
Wow.
Okay, very good, very good. Mr. Rawlings?
David, as far as the tree debris, does that include in the backyard, in people's backyard, or is just anything they can haul to the curb, you just hope you can pick it up if you've got the
Right. We
machines to do it?
have some information on the web and on social media that describes how to place it, but it needs to be within 10 feet of the curb. But they can pull any of the, if they have any debris around their yard, even fences, because trees are going to knock down some fences. We'll take in the fences also.
I had that question today from a couple of people, so thank you.
Ms. Harrison?
Thank you. I'm glad Ms. Hobbs stuck around. I'm glad you're hearing this, and I hope that you have a great way to communicate with your community, because we know they're not all on social media. And so these points about our debris pickup, I'm just amazed by our efficiency. And I'll note, if you haven't heard, not all neighboring communities in Johnson County are offering a drop-off site. And that has a lot of folks wondering what they're supposed to do with these huge limbs, and that's a big expense to get rid of those. So I hope you'll be able to share that, ma'am, with your neighbors. And I would also ask you to share that if you have elderly residents who can't get things moved, that I've learned that many scout troops are offering to earn community service, and I believe they're calling it conservation something hours, conservation management service hours, by helping with this sort of thing, not chainsaws, but with, because that might be unsafe, but movement of debris. So maybe spread that word. And I also finally wanted to say, I was the skeptic on the bench the last 3, I think, times that generators have been installed in large homes in Leawood. And I would just like to say, I'm sorry. I understand with a whole new level of importance about sides of beef that have been purchased and are in freezers, and aquariums and other items that can be quite catastrophic. I can't imagine watching all the fish die, slow deaths, as the bubbles stop bubbling and so forth. But no, seriously, I had no idea how many freezers of food were going to the curb, and so it's bring on the generators if you still need them.
I did have someone tell me that There are many more generators in Leawood than they
Oh,
had
yeah.
any idea about.
Oh,
They're all
yeah.
running now, so they really
Yeah.
are hearing them. Yes.
If I could add one thing, I forgot
Yes.
to mention that Chris Claxton in the Parks Department is helping with the debris pickup, so they will be helping us next week alongside Public Works.
Great.
Very good. And please do offer our thanks to Liz for her help with
So
communications.
it wasn't a microburst then, because I know some news sources were saying it was a microburst.
Just straight line.
Straight line winds.
Yeah, I didn't hear microburst at all. Straight line winds, I mean, it moved through the area. And I mean, interesting enough, because the forecasts aren't always on, but they said it would hit us between 4 and 8, and started raining about 3:30 and 4 o'clock, the winds hit, so.
Yeah, you were
we pretty
exactly
dead on.
right. What, the email we got, you were exactly right, dead on.
Well, that's National Weather Service.
Yeah.
I can't take any credit for it.
My aunt, she's in Overland Park, but she was out for 5 days. She just got it back tonight. Woo-hoo! But she was able to plug a refrigerator in across the street with a very long extension cord, so she didn't lose her, she didn't have a side of beef, but she didn't, or the fish or whatever. But, yeah, she was hearing that Arizona was reporting it was a microburst. So this was even out of state reporting. I'd never heard that either. I didn't hear that. I was only out 5 hours, so I considered myself very lucky for 5 days versus 5 days. And no, Deborah was out a long time. Andrew was out a long time. So thank you. Thank you for all your
Yeah.
hard work.
We really appreciate
Yeah.
it very much. And Diane, thank you for your leadership, too.
Mayor.
Ms. Fella?
Yeah. I just want to acknowledge that I really don't want to be first in this category of wind speeds again, so if you could do something about that. And I'm disappointed that the pic of my house with the tree on my roof wasn't on here, so I don't know what I have to do to make the news. And Annie, and there is the morning after a lot of sounds of generators. You'd think, wow, everybody's got their windows open, we'll enjoy the sounds of the birds chirping, and it's just a hum all over the place.
Definitely a drone on Saturday.
And last but not least, if anybody knows anybody who's works with wood or is an artist, that sycamore wood is out there to be gathered before it gets picked up, and it's beautiful, beautiful wood.
The urban tree people might take it. I know when we chopped down our cherry tree or had to take down our cherry tree, they took our wood.
Thanks, I'll call them.
Uh-huh. And to make things out of it. So, yeah.
Right, thank you.
And, one more last complaint. I left Justice Center about 4:30, 4:45, and I had to try 3 different ways to get home because your fire trucks were in the way with police escorts and siren, and lights all over the place, blocking our ways while you were clearing off the street. So please,
I'll make sure to reprimand him.
it was great. You guys were so on top of it. It's amazing.
Call Uber.
All right, thank you. 11B, resolution approving, authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement with Arbor Masters for storm debris pickup in an amount not to exceed $100,000.
Move to
Ms.
approve.
Stoddard, did you want to say anything about this, or?
No, Mayor, unless there's any questions. we're
Okay, it was just
recommending
under
this.
your report, so I was just asking.
We're recommending this contract this evening so
All
that
right.
we can.
A motion from
establish that.
Ms. Villa. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Hazeltine. There's no further discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. It's approved unanimously, and you will note that this will start on the 24th, I believe, of July, to give people time to get their stuff to the curbs, or within 10 feet.
Or their chainsaws out, whatever.
Thank you. 11C, Ms. Stoddard, the 2023 governing body goals and objectives quarterly progress update.
Thank you, Mayor. We just wanted to provide this quarterly progress update related to our progress on the goals that you all established at the beginning of the year. And I don't have anything particular to highlight for you this evening. I would like to thank City Clerk Stephen Powell for his help in putting together the report and all the department heads for feeding the information in. We would be happy to answer any questions that you have on any aspects of the report. We do intend to have this be a quarterly feature so that we keep you up to date on where we're at with the goals, if we're having any struggles or anything like that, we'll be sure to highlight that for you.
Well, it's very thorough. Ms. Kane and Ms. Harrison.
As I was reading through this, on page 6 of 7, the first bullet, provide an education program for bicyclists, motorcycles about obeying all traffic regulations. Chief, I don't know about your areas, but we have kids flying down our streets on these electric scooters now, these little children, and we have a preponderance all of a sudden of golf carts everywhere. So I'm not even sure, people have asked me, what are the rules, what are the traffic regulations, and how do they apply to the scooters and the golf carts? And so I know this says this is 100% completed, this task is 100% completed, but I think some education, because those electric scooters and these children whizzing around, 25 miles an hour. The other day I saw a father with this little child in front of him, and they were just flying down the street, and I thought, one bump and you're both gone. It terrifies me. So anyway, they seem to be everywhere these days.
Dale Finger, Police Chief. And you're absolutely right. We've had a number of calls regarding golf carts in the streets and the scooters, and we put out messages, educational messages on our social media. We've reminded our officers, to be more aware of these types of vehicles, and for the most part, they're not legal to be on the streets of Leawood. So those are the things that we are doing and will continue to do. Educational programs, like I said, will continue, and from time to time, the social media messages.
Well, we could partner that with our education to the HOAs, can we not? Because they're flying around Leawood South Golf Course. They're coming even across Mission Road, because I'm on the other side from the golf course, and we're seeing them all the time these days. So if they're not supposed to be on the road, there's a whole bunch of people that are not clear about that. And then these scooters with these little people on them, if that's not supposed to be on the road, then again, that would certainly be important to tell our homes associations, because somebody's going to get hurt.
Right.
It
Thank
does
you.
say at the signage at the trails, no motorized vehicles. So I assume that means the bicycles that are, electric bicycles, is that what they're called? They help you pedal, I know that.
Correct. And
And they are on the trails, I can tell you.
Yeah.
so, again, that's educational message that we still need to continue to put out and make our officers aware that, to be aware of those instances, to take care of
Okay.
the
And
matter
Miss-
when they see them.
Ms. Claxton's coming in to comment on that, I believe, too. Thank you.
Yes, Chris Claxton, Director of Parks, Recreation, and Arts. We do allow e-bikes on the trail.
We
I just
do.
wanted to make sure that you were
So
aware.
it says no motorized vehicles, but those aren't considered.
No, no. I mean, they are, but they aren't. So we're talking about bird or scooters or things like that, or motorcycles or anything like that. But we do allow e-bikes. I
But
just wanted to make
scooters
sure.
are not allowed?
Not like a bird or anything like that, so. I think we made that decision, I want to say, several years ago. I don't know if you remember, but.
And I wasn't a part of that discussion. I believe Chief
Might have been
Reddick was, but.
Chief Reddick, yeah.
But Ms. Claxton is correct. The bicycles that have pedals but are electrically powered, those are still legal on the trail.
Thank you. Mr. Sipple and Ms. Larson.
There is a third type
Is your microphone on, Mr. Sipple? It doesn't sound like it.
There's a third type of e-bike that goes in excess of 20 miles an hour that are not allowed on the trail system, either in Overland Park or in Leawood and other Johnson County areas. And I think the parks people have gotten together on that and outlawed those. But as Chris said, yes, the battery-assisted, those are allowed in Leawood. Now,
That
the
is
Bike
correct.
Walk Committee worked on that quite a bit, so thank you.
Ms. Larson?
Just to clarify on the golf carts, I thought they were allowed with some restrictions, like they can't be on a street that's more than 25 miles per hour. They have to have seat belts and license plate. And then they can cross a street that's more than 25 mile per hour, but then they have to get back into that neighborhood with the 25 mile per hour.
There are two different types of motorized golf carts, so to speak. Now, when we talk about and visualize a golf cart, we visualize what we see on a golf course. Those are not allowed in the streets of Leawood. However, what we also see are those motorized carts that look like beefed up golf carts that can be considered a slow-moving vehicle that to be allowed on the streets, they have to be tagged, seat belts worn, those types of things. So there's two different types of carts that I think confuse people about what's legal and what's not.
Right, thank you for that clarification, because I do see some of those with the seat belts and the license plate and the,
Okay.
so just to clarify.
Anything else? Ms. Harrison?
Thanks. For those of you that aren't aware, this awesome new software implemented, I believe, by our city clerk, that has the agenda online, you can see the city goals and this little bar, 10% accomplished, 100% accomplished, 15%, 20. So if you're a visual person and you want to check on how we're doing on our goals, you just go over here. It's right next to the agenda. For those of us that have gone paperless, we see this every week, so.
Are you shaming
I'm
some
not
of us?
shaming, I'm just saying.
I believe it sounds like
That
shaming.
feels
I think it's-
subtle-
I
a
think it's
subtle
bragging.
eco-shame.
Bragging.
I just love seeing this little progress, these little lines get a little thicker every couple of weeks, so.
And I'm happy to get anyone an iPad who wants one.
All right, very good. Well, we'll look forward to future updates and progress. So thank you, Ms. Stoddard. We have no other staff reports. This evening, we go to item 13A, committee recommendations, resolution approving a final plan for Market Square revised sign criteria located north of 135th Street and east of Mission Road. And I do have maybe the presenter who signed in to speak, Shelley Popple-Tretier. And I apologize, I know I'm not saying that correctly. So you could introduce yourselves, please.
It will be when IT switches.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Mark Thomas. I'm the Senior Vice President of Property and Risk Management for Copac and Brooks. And our office is at 111 Main, Kansas City, Missouri, Suite 2000. I am the owner's representative for Market Square Shopping Center. And we're here today to talk to you about signage that we would like to do. On my left is Kent Gwynn. He is my property manager for Market Square. And on my right is Shelley Proppelmeyer with Luminous Neon, who has helped us with this sign proposal. As you look at this aerial view of Market Square, the development's located between Mission Road and 135th Street. The original developer built the Price Chopper, Building A and B, which are the two blue buildings, in 2001. And we acquired the property in 2006. And being bullish on Leawood, we developed buildings D1 and 2. We also went forward and we sold off recently the Lot 8, which was the New Horizons property, which is recently opened. So what brings us here today is we're here to request approval of a final plan to update the existing sign criteria of an internally illuminated sign at the northeast corner of 135th and Mission. So I'm sure you're all very familiar with this location. So when you look and you think about Leawood, you're thinking about the quality of the city, the aesthetics that you could put out. But when you approach this intersection, it's a little bit void of an identifier. And so we think that this really adds a nice, elegant element to the property. The challenge that we run into is the original development plan, which was approved, showed a sign here, but it was to be it was supposed to be externally illuminated. You have to apologize. I am not used to presenting to these governing boards, so I'm doing the best I can. The letters will be white, and they will be 27 inches tall. And we think it just adds a really nice touch of class to it. It'll be mounted to the columns and into the terrace fence behind it. And if you're probably wondering, why did we not want to go with the exterior illuminated aspect of it? And the reason is because there's no way to really externally illuminate it that isn't going to cause a pedestrian problem of them walking between the planter box and the front of the sign. So we're really limited in that regard. You know, we worked with staff and we recommended the revised criteria of illuminated to the Planning Commission, which unanimously approved it. And we're here today to request and your approval for an internally illuminated sign at this location.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Thomas. It's very attractive. Questions for Mr. Thomas? Ms. Harrison?
Thank you. I am a Gold Star shopper of Market Square, often walking there, riding my bike with a backpack. I'm wondering if there is any plan to have some monument signage around some of the edges, since Market Square has gotten so big, and because of the closure of Mission, people have discovered some new entrances to Market Square, dare I say, and they're seeing businesses they didn't maybe know were there because they've had to come around Price Chopper from the back and so forth. If you're not familiar with the construction, apologies to Price Chopper and Lancaster Liquor, we're almost done. But the monument signs that sort of would tell people, here's what's over at this corner of Market Square and here's what's at this end. Is there any plan in the future to do some of that? I feel like some of those businesses, people just don't know they're there.
There isn't any direct tenant signage currently planned. I'm happy to take it under advisement and speak to the owners about it. I think it's a wonderful suggestion. But right now, on the north side of the property off Pawnee, there is a small sign that says Market Square, but there is no signage identifying the shopping center on the northeast corner of the center.
Right, I'm talking more about signage that would say Blush Boot Camp is here, or Kriegel Mesh, or Lancaster Liquors, or something, so that, because again, I think there are businesses have come and gone over there on that south side, and I just feel like people didn't even know they were there. But
Well,
it's just a thought.
we're happy to look at that. I'm pleased to say that, you know, in the retail world, you either got a really good retail center or it's not so good. We're 98% leased, and we're very pleased with it. And Price Chopper just extended their lease through 2027. So that is wonderful news. I'm happy to take that under advisement and look at it. There's a lot of capital that we need to reinvest in the center with parking lot repair and curbs and the normal wear and tear that goes with it. But we really are bullish on this, and we hope that we can gain your support.
Well, congratulations on being 98% leased.
Thank you.
And, you know, our planning staff does have lots of rules and regulations when it comes to signs. So I know if you take it under advisement, you will be working with staff to see what is actually doable.
You know, they have been excellent to work with, and I'm not just trying to say that to fluff it up, but I deal with all the local municipalities from Lenexa, Overland Park, Kansas City, Missouri. They have been very supportive and have worked with us on this to find a compromise that would meet your expectations.
Great, thank you. Ms. Phillip?
Following up on Lisa's suggestion, Ranch Mart has a little bit of the similar issue that they've got some new retail coming in on the side by the bank. It's not very visible from the road, and they've done a nice job on their entryway. I just noticed it yesterday, looking for ice. I got a little bit of a tour of the grocery stores.
Those owners did a wonderful job. I mean, they totally repositioned that asset. I mean, it's just a rock star.
But the signage into the main one, pointing you left or right for some of the businesses is a really nice touch, because you might not find them.
Right.
Ms. Kane?
This has nothing to do with your sign, which I think is very attractive, and I think it's going to be great, as you said. And I too, well, my husband is there, I swear to God, every day. And our joke is he's got a girlfriend there because he goes so often. But we're quite sure he has a girlfriend at Price Chopper. But my question is, you mentioned you sold the site to Horizon, which looks great. And then way back when I first got involved with the city was when that whole development was the brouhaha over that whole development. So is there any further pad sites along that west side that are available to anybody, or is the west side as it stands gonna remain empty?
The entire west side along Mission Road is a green zone, and it is undevelopable, unless you would like to grant us a variance.
It was a stipulation, it was a settlement agreement.
I do believe I remember that, and that's why I'm asking the question.
Yes.
Because I want to make sure that if you're new, or you're representing the owner, but that everybody understands that you got to leave that alone, that side.
Yes. The only
Yes.
remaining developable parcel is the exact east side of the Price Chopper, 1.5 acre parcel there.
Exact east side. So between Price Chopper and Pawnee, then?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right, thank you. Move to approve if nobody's already done
I
that?
don't think they have.
Second. Okay.
Motion from Ms. Kane, second from Ms. Larson. Is there any further discussion? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. All right, thank you, Mr. Thomas and
Thank you.
your representatives, and beautiful sign. We'll look forward to it.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have no old business. We move to item 15A, new business. Ordinance amending sections 3-115 and 3-208, each entitled exemptions pertaining to areas exempted from certain enhanced cereal malt beverage and alcoholic liquor requirements, repealing existing sections 3-115 and 3-208, and any other sections in conflict herewith. And I guess we've got Ms. Claxton or Ms. Weber. Ms. Claxton's coming in, so.
I was going to say, I've talked briefly with.
All right.
Yes, Chris Claxton, Director of Parks, Recreation, and Arts again. So I asked that this ordinance be revisited because we do have spaces that we do or would like to allow alcohol. The Wave is one. Several years ago when we had the Symphony, that was another location that I had talked to Mr. Lambers about allowing people to have it. We don't plan to sell it. We also don't plan to allow it at shelters without special requests, but that's been almost nil in the years that I've been here. So we wanted to clean up the ordinance a little bit. So with Patty and Kelsey's help, I think we've been able to do that. And I'd certainly stand for any questions you might have.
Move to approve?
Motion for Mr. Osmond. Is there a second? Second for Ms. Harrison. Mr. Sippel?
Ms. Claxton, how many times a year does this issue come up where they would request a license or a certificate or whatever?
Shelters, as I mentioned, extremely rarely. The Wave, we've already had some requests. We also have an event that we're planning to have called Wine Down Wednesdays for people 55 and older. That's going to be the first week in August. Again, we're not selling it, so it's kind of like a tasting and wine and cheese pairing sort of event. So, we do anticipate as those rentals increase, which they have been, we have 2 this weekend, we're going to see more requests to have alcohol in that space.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Villa?
So now that, legalization's going along with marijuana, if, let's say, Kansas legalized that, would that be something that we'd have to consider if we're going to do one legal substance?
I would have no idea. I would say that you all would want to cross that bridge when and if it ever came to that, but.
Well, we don't allow smoking in Leawood.
That's
so
correct.
that would probably not come to pass.
Just as a matter of course, I just want to say that that's why I will be voting in the nay, because I think we're setting precedents that we'll have hard time backing up on later
I know that there was a time not too terribly long ago when our sister city in Israel had a wine festival, and they invited us to come over for it. We were not able to do so. In fact, there is another one this year that we're not able to go to. But they wanted us to toast them from Gezer Park that is in their honor. So we did have a celebration, and we got a special permit, and then we sent them beautiful wine glasses engraved with both of our logos on them. So anyway, those are sort of the typical celebratory time when you may see this request come up.
And I failed to mention also at the 75th anniversary in the VIP tent, we plan to have alcoholic beverages as part of the ticket. Again, we're not selling them there, so many of you participate in events where you get a couple tickets, and that's all there is, so.
All right, we have a motion and a second. If there's no further discussion, roll call, please.
Councilmember Phila?
Nay.
Councilmember Rawlings? Councilmember Sippel?
Aye.
Councilmember Kane?
Aye.
Councilmember Asseltine?
Aye.
Councilmember Harrison?
Aye.
Councilmember Larson?
Aye.
Councilmember Osmond?
Aye.
All right, the ordinance is approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, I'd just like to ask Ms. Claxton, either semi-annually or annually, give us a count of the number of times you have made this allowance for parties. I would just be interested in the frequency.
We can do that,
Thank you
certainly.
very much.
Welcome.
Thank you. 15B is schedule a governing body meeting on Monday, August 7, 2023 at 7 p.m. Motion from Mr. Rawlings.
Second.
Second from Ms. Phila. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. It's approved unanimously.
Can I
And-
make one correction before we go?
Yes.
You mentioned the hardwood. The company's called urbanlumbercompany.com. And on their website, it says, "We make hardwood lumber from Kansas City trees." So if somebody has a good tree that went down, we had cherries that went down, and they cut half and gave us half. That's their deal. They'll do it for free as long as they get to keep half. So super cool. urbanlumbercompany.com. They may be overwhelmed because of all the trees that went down, but that's a super cool place.
Thank you.
All right, thank you for that information. And having no further business to come before this group, we are adjourned. Thank you.